Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Winning in politics is all about one thing. When the voters tell you something, when the voters are feeling something, successful politicians, successful political groups or parties always win with the same strategy. They respond with, I hear you, I understand you, we're gonna do something about it. And this is why the current iteration of the Democrat Party is screwed. I mean, royally screwed. Because as voters are crying out for help, as voters are saying we are suffering under the current conditions of this administration and of these policies, Democrats are straight up ignoring you. I mean, Joe Biden has said countless times that the problem isn't him or his policies, that these problems don't actually exist. It's just a remnant of depression from the pandemic. People just have the inability to be happy these days. He literally said that. It's not that people are suffering. It's not that people want freedom. It's not that people can't afford basic goods. It's not that their 401ks are crumbling. It's that they're just depressed and they have the inability to be happy and they're blaming Joe. Does that sound like a winning message to you? Clearly not, and that's why the Democrats are screwed. And I mean royally screwed. The most important factor here being voter sentiment, folks. And the sentiment is clear across different demographics and different political affiliations. And the closer we get to election day, the more focus groups we get and the more we start to see this exact effect. We have a moment here from a CBS News focus group, which shows bipartisan agreement on nearly every single issue. And let's just say it's not looking so good for Democrats. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. Let's continue with our election analysis. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this headline right here from Blaze Media. Focus group stuns CBS News host with bipartisan agreement on nearly every issue. Quote, none of you are very optimistic. It's almost a 4-minute video, so I'll try to condense it as best as I can for you guys. Take a look at this.
We should be pushing the actual school studies, math, social studies, science, not, gender studies or sexual identifications.
I imagine you have some pretty specific ideas in your mind when you're speaking about this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the children are, they're really influenced. You can teach them one thing at home, but when they go to school, they're just as much influenced by their teachers and their surroundings. And we should have more input, the parents, of what we want them to learn.
When you said your top issue was crime, what did you have in mind?
They're losing their mind. It's like people are everywhere doing everything, and it's like they're out of control. Nobody's stopping them. I feel like there's so much focus on helping immigrants, and it's not enough focus on the people here that might need assistance.
Do you blame your mayor and your governor for that, or do you blame Washington for that?
It's everybody. They help who they want. Certain people, certain groups of people, they'll help them, and then they'll neglect someone else.
Often when we do these focus groups, we have people from different party affiliations disagreeing with each other, but I'm hearing all of you echo a lot of the same concerns and agreeing with each other. None of you are very optimistic about the country right now.
No.
This is the perfect example for exactly what I've been talking about, voter sentiment. When the current outlook and future outlook is negative, that falls on the current group in leadership. And of course, that's the Democrats. And what you saw in that focus group is that it's bipartisan. Politicians are always going to be partisan, activists and Twitter users are always going to be partisan, but regular folks think a little bit differently. Regular people are in agreement basically across the board on most issues. When it comes to the southern border, when it comes to crime, when it comes to the economy, as we've been reporting for 6 months, probably even longer, Republicans are winning on all of these key issues. Right there, what you just saw is the visual representation of all of the data that we've been covering. Moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, and middle ground independent voters are all currently favoring the Republican Party. And even when you look at staunch Democrat voters, they have a serious enthusiasm problem. Even Amy Walter from the Cook Political Report is writing pieces checking in on the Biden, quote, meh voters. People are just not enthused to vote for the Democrats, and it's very simply because the Democrats aren't addressing their issues. Democrats are pretending that their issues don't actually exist. It's an interesting political strategy to say the least. When on the Republican side, we're basically seeing the exact opposite. Lee Zeldin is currently surging in the polls in New York State, on his way to possibly unseat Democrat Kathy Hochul in deep blue New York. And it's because, as we previously covered, covered, he's tackling the issue of crime seriously, on the record stating he will declare a state of emergency day one in office on the issue of crime. Democrats pretend crime doesn't actually exist. Republicans are telling you they're going to do something about it. Concerned parents are mortified by the woke indoctrination and inappropriate content being pushed on their children. Democrats pretend that it doesn't actually exist. I mean, they literally tell you that CRT doesn't exist, even though we know that it does, or they justify it and defend it. Republicans are coming out with a different message. Here's Paul LePage, currently running for governor in the state of Maine.
Well, first of all, we need a Parents' Bill of Rights. What the pandemic showed us is that parents were not aware of the things happening in our schools. This administration has got a very woke agenda, very left-wing agenda. We need to establish some transparency in our curriculum. We need to have school choice, real school choice, like we had back in the 70s. We have to have parents notified to opt out when there's sensitive material that is not age appropriate.
Republicans are identifying issues and telling you, we're going to do something about it. When it comes to education, school choice, parental rights in education, Republicans are identifying voter grievances and actually tackling those issues. Democrats continue to run away, and it's to the extent where even other Democrats are calling out the Democrat establishment on these exact issues. There is a humanitarian crisis, an emergency currently happening at the southern border thanks to Joe Biden. They refuse to acknowledge the reality of the situation. Karine Jean-Pierre, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden continue to say on record, oh, and let me add to the list Alejandro Mayorkas, they all continue to say on the record that the border is secure. But that's clearly a lie, and it's another issue that they refuse to tackle. Even their own, even Democrats, are getting frustrated with the constant lies and avoiding of hard truths. Quote, the border is not secure. Democrat Representative Henry Cuellar says Biden's border policies allowed over 5 million migrants to enter the U.S. When it comes to the issue of inflation, it took them months to acknowledge that inflation was a serious issue, and they still continue to downplay it and continue to avoid taking any responsibility with their crazy spending packages. But we know that they know. In fact, top Democrat now admits that all of us knew Biden's economic bills would make inflation worse. Prices tend to rise. They knew since the start that it was going to be an issue. They dismissed all of those issues, and now that voters, of course, are struggling, they refuse to acknowledge and address it. It's going to be their undoing. And you know that the Democrat establishment and the Democrat media is having a current moment of reckoning as they backtrack and finally start to wake up to these issues. I mean, here's a great moment from Jake Tapper's show the other night.
I have to say, I'm surprised that there hasn't been a national conversation about the damage done to kids because of these school closures and the virtual learning and everything. Because, I mean, I'm not saying there should be a national do-over, but we can't just pretend that fifth graders who are now seventh graders, that didn't happen, you know? Like, I feel like there should be, and not with a blame game. Look, it happened. People did it. It was criticized, the school closures, the virtual learning, et cetera. But here we are. There needs to be like a bipartisan movement, you know?
Quote, I have to say that I'm surprised that there hasn't been a national conversation about the damage done to kids because of these school closures. What do you mean, Jake Tapper? There hasn't been a national discussion because clowns like you, working in conjunction with the Democrat establishment, have refused to report accurately on the developmental and academic damage done to children thanks to Democrat policies. I mean, these people are total clowns. You have refused for 2+ years straight to acknowledge any of the grievances coming from independent and Republican voters. You have refused to acknowledge any of the issues, and now all of a sudden you're surprised why there's not a national discussion. Well, it's very simply because Democrats have been shutting down discussion on all of these issues that don't directly benefit them. And now all of a sudden that they're realizing they're in trouble, well, now they're acknowledging it because now it benefits them to admit that there might be a problem. But of course, it's too little too late. The voters have abandoned you. Even lifelong Democrat voters have had enough. Their voices are not being heard. Whether it's Hispanic voters who don't support illegal migration, Democrats continue to ignore them. They don't support socialism, Democrats continue to ignore them, so they're moving towards Republicans. Whether it's black voters who don't want their police departments defunded, they want to live in safe communities with economic opportunity, Democrats don't listen. Of course, this one's a little bit more tough, but slowly black voters are moving away from the Democrat Party. Whether it's suburban families, suburban moms, who are sick of failed public schools, who are sick of the woke indoctrination currently plaguing public schools and all of the inappropriate content and inappropriate teachers, their concerns are not being met by the Democrats. They're being told that they're extremists or bigots for being concerned about their children. The list goes on and on. Of course, school closures, school choice is added to the list. Democrats refuse to acknowledge any of their concerns, and it's very simply going to be their undoing. The Democrat body politic has such an inflated ego, such an inflated head. They forgot that politics isn't about them. It's about the people. And the basic philosophy should always be asking the voters, what are your problems and how can I help? Not, here's my far-left Democrat mandate, and obey or else. Fall in line or you're a bigot. The modern day Democrat strategy is collapsing, and the Democrat Party along with it. That's what I got for you guys though. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching, friends, and I will see you on the next one.